Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heartandhand. That's nordvpn.com/heartandhand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar and as always I am your host, and I am delighted to welcome this week to discuss a thumping cup victory and look ahead to what is a massive week to welcome two of my favourite guests. First of all, Cammy Bell. Hello Cammy.
Hello David, thank you very much for having me on Flagship. Always a pleasure to be here.
And joining him is Colin McMillan.
Hi David, hi Cammy, hi listeners. Yeah, pleasure to be here this week.
It really was. It was a pleasure to be watching Rangers yesterday as we dismantled Queen's Park with an utterly professional performance. That's one of the words that has been used a lot in it. And I think that, Cammy, clearly, if you wanted an illustration of the difference in Rangers from last season, but even from the start of this season, then here was a perfect illustration, a nice simple one, which is, of course, last year we famously lost that match to Queen's Park by a 0-0. There was never any sense of history repeating itself yesterday. You never got the impression that that was even a remote possibility, because Rangers just approached this game in a way that almost precluded panic, that almost precluded anything happening like that, and in the end, just without ever really looking like they were going hell for leather, understandably, scored 8 goals because they kept going, they kept giving the crowd a bit of entertainment, and just provided in the end an utterly perfect cup display.
Yeah, it was excellent. It really was. We picked a strong team, which I think was right for this occasion. But more than that, David, what we saw was some good game time for our January intake, which was really pleasing. But what this Rangers team has really started to embed is, as you mentioned earlier on, a professionalism, a calmness, a level-headedness. And I think it kind of permeates from the stands, because we all believe that now as well. Now, I don't think we were ever going to see a repeat from last year, as you rightly said. But we came into the back of this obviously in some brilliant domestic form, and well deserved. It's not luck that we've been able to get ourselves into that position. It's been, some big effort from the team, from the players, the manager getting it right, been able to use the squad, and probably getting some upturns from players that, frankly, we would have driven out of Ibrox, at Christmas time. So, yeah, just a really, really enjoyable performance, and a good variety of goals, which I think was really important, and some goals for players, as I say, who are fresh in the building, and will do a lot of good for them to bed in.
Colin, I've mentioned, and Cammy mentioned the word calm, straightforward, down to earth, qualities I would associate with the manager. I'm a great believer that teams reflect on their manager, but is this true, or is it merely something that we apply from the outside looking in?
I think it's something that all managers would like to believe to be true.
Yeah,
but
that's
true for all managers.
That's a good point.
I think with this particular manager or head coach, there is an element of truth to it, though, because we're going to talk later on, I would imagine, about the 4 new signings and how they played yesterday. But before that, what he's done with a squad of players who couldn't pass a ball, couldn't defend, couldn't score for such a long time this season, who let us down and disappointed us so many times, a lot of it isn't just the coaching, a lot of it is the personal stuff, the man-to-man stuff, and building up that confidence, building up that belief. And we've got points and we've won games that, I know it's a cliche, but we just wouldn't have won earlier in the season. And I think a lot of that kudos and praise does have to go to the manager for that. It's looking, touch wood, that he's had a good January window, which isn't easily done. But even before that, we went on a great run. He changed things around and he got us strong at the back initially. And then he's brought in reinforcements now to actually make us better going forward. There's a lot of praise for him. And it's not just, I think, plain old tactics or anything else. A lot of it, I think, is getting into the mindset, getting into their heads and making them believe again. And that, in turn, I think, has made us believe also.
Yeah, as Cammy mentioned, the team, it was a strong side. And I think that the manager said an interesting thing in the press conference. He said that he, on the day before the game, or the training session before the game, he'll play starters versus non-starters, based on obviously the selection for any particular match. And he said a couple of months ago there was a big difference between who was playing and who wasn't, and now there isn't so much. And that comes from Cammy squad building, 4 new arrivals obviously, but it also comes from players who were already in the squad now being capable of contributing more than they looked like they were capable of contributing at the start of the season. And we've had guys, and we've discussed and praised on here, that have come through and have certainly improved through the season. Mikey Moore, of course, case in point, probably the biggest one, Manny Fernandez. But yesterday was hopefully the beginning of something similar for Oliver Antman, where he capped off a good substitute appearance against Kilmarnock with a goal and an assist by a very good display, both on the wing and in the second half as a right back.
Yeah, we were all a bit taken aback when we saw him playing back there, didn't we? But yeah, it's been an interesting season for a number of reasons, David, right? And obviously we don't know how it's all going to end, but I think the lesson for me at the moment is we need to give a real sufficient amount of time for players before we then do the usual write-off. And you mentioned guys in there, Fernandez, Moore. We could go further than just Antman, Asgard, etc. And some of it, you're going to have to understand from a player mentality. Do you now realise that when you come to Rangers, what it's actually like? You may think you do before you put pen to paper and you have the conversations and you meet the manager and you do, all of your level of due diligence. But being here is something totally different. And I'm a huge believer in that you'll only win and be successful at the end of your campaigns, whether it's in the domestic cups of the league, with everybody contributing. Some will contribute more than others, which is perfectly fine, but everyone has to be able to do that whenever their opportunity comes into. Asgard, for example, I think, a lot of people have made their minds up on, but we can't dismiss the fact that he has won games for us. Manny Fernandez looked so disjointed at the beginning of the season. It was horrendous. We all criticised them because we felt that we should be getting something a lot better than what we were seeing. And now we're seeing far, far better from him. Mikey Moore, I think, is an interesting one because I think he's definitely found his groove into it, but it's so easy to forget how young he is.
Yeah.
And how I suppose really what I'm trying to say is, he's not an 18-year-old in Scotland. We think of him as an 18-year-old from England who's had all of this, fantastic development journey, top flight clubs, where you then think, well, if they transition up to Scotland, it should be easy peasy. And it's not. It's absolutely not. There's guys who have got 10 years in him and they haven't been able to do it. Chris, even more than that, when you look at guys like Joe Rothwell, who hugely experienced but couldn't cut the mustard. And so for me, again, it comes back to that element of everyone, whenever they do get their opportunity, and we've seen this in the last couple of games with Antman, as you'd mentioned, how much do you want it? How hungry are you to be able to try and do this? Now, your season could have been hampered with injury, or the guy in front of you is playing better, so it's going to be difficult for you to get the team. But when you get your opportunity, you have to seize it. And the cohesion in the team now, I think, under Danny Rule just feels far more apparent. And the players quite clearly enjoy playing in this team, whether you're a constant starter or, again, you're coming off the bench, or you're on the fringe and now you're going to be more involved. The cohesion is definitely there. And they look like a far better squad now, a squad that we labelled criticisms towards in terms of quality. We're not saying that any longer. And the players have earned that, by the way, as well. I'm not putting all the credit just on Rule. He has worked miracles. But from where we were to where we are now, it's completely night and day.
Yeah, I mean, the still has its issues, Colin. I mean, it is only a week on from the Hibs game, where they received some criticism, and deservedly so, because there's a lack of creativity. But I mean, I said in October at the tail end of the Russell Martin regime, this is the worst Rangers team I've seen in the Premier League, and it was. I mean, it was based on results, it was based on performances. They didn't create chances, and they couldn't keep other teams out of the other end either. So that there has been a huge amount of improvement, but there is still a ways to go. Cammy mentioned there that some players take a while to settle in, and that is true. And obviously, it's more difficult when a team is doing badly to do that, especially for younger players. But in this window, the manager has spoken about the players who've been brought in to come in and make an impact. And he has said, yes, that they're all players that we hope will be successful for us for a number of years, but equally we need them to, and we want them, and we expect them to come in. And I think there's always a balance to be reached, as most things in life. I think we had veered too far, not simply based on fan expectations. I think that you can expect players to come in and just be brilliant from the first game, and it would be lovely if they all did, but we know that doesn't happen. Equally, I think that Clement was bad for this, Bale was bad for this, about almost saying that you can't expect any of them to do it. Some players will take a wee while to settle in, some players won't, but I think we'd got almost accepting, because we've been told so often, they're just in the door. I mean, Clement's phrase was, they're just in the building, and it's like, yeah, but surely some of them should just come in and hit the ground running.
Yeah, it was a real frustration for me in the past, that sort of thing, especially in January. I remember hearing things like, players you buy in January, you're really just getting them ready for the next season. No, that's not good enough. And I guess we're shopping in a different market now. We're buying a better calibre of player who probably is better suited to come in and do better right from the off, but also maybe keeping it a little bit more simple and not needing the requirement of having 4 or 5 weeks of training before they know the system inside out and are ready to come in. And we're buying players that are fitter, younger, and better in this window as well. You saw it yesterday with Nadiri. He's playing as a striker. There isn't that much science to that. We want him to get in the box. We want him to get shots away, and we want him to beat the goalkeeper. He can learn the tactics. He can learn the system in time and begin to contribute more, probably off the ball and stuff like that. But in terms of getting a guy in who you want to score goals, we've given him an opportunity to do that, and look what he's done. There is an argument for keeping it a bit more simple and not going too in-depth with the player needs so much preparation, so much time. And it's frustrating for a fan, because we know what it's like when we've signed players in the past. You're excited about them, you've watched all the videos, you're kind of anticipating what they're going to do. And then you just don't see them for about a month. And that was no good for us, particularly in this window. We needed, like you said, 3, 4, 5 bodies that could come in, make instant impact, improve us straight away, and keep us and help us in this title race. And touch wood, after a couple of games so far, not against the best of opposition, but given what we've seen them against, who they've been up against, it looks like we've done okay. We've got good guys there, and it's given us hope for the rest of the season. We're in a title race. We weren't going to be in it without making some good signings in January. It was absolutely essential, and it looks like we've done that. And as I said, we're now full of optimism for the couple of months we've got ahead of us.
Yeah, I think, Cammy, that it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit, that people hear the manager saying that and they start to think it, and the player starts to think it, and as I say, it becomes almost something that is bound to happen. But what I would say, though, about bringing in players, particularly in January, is that the effect can be twofold. I remember reading Sir Alex Ferguson's book about, and he speaks about this. He says, when you bring in players, it's not only about what they can bring, it's what they can cause with the other players, which is, if you bring in good players, the other players are almost, you get an extra bit at them, because they're like, I want to show these guys that I'm a good player. I want to show I should still be in the team. And levels go up across the board. It isn't just you bring in some good players and they improve the side. It's like it helps actually spark something in the others as well. And I kind of feel the fact that we've we've not brought in bodies in this window. These guys are being brought to play at several costs. Some decent money. I mean, what was it, €5.5 million from the Dairy, 4 for Chukwani, 3 for Romans, and obviously there will be a big investment in Skov Olsen between loan fee, wages, and then potential fee in the summer. So I think that you could maybe sense that there is a sense of the rest of the squad also feeling, well, we're serious about this, and I think it has been reflected after what was a pretty poor 45 minutes against Kilmarnock. You've seen everybody really go up a level this week in terms of attacking output.
Yeah, for sure. It's making a statement is the simplest way I can put it, with what Colin said earlier on. 100% correct. Are you building for the next 3, 4, 5 months, or are you building for the next 18 to 24? And what do you realistically expect to achieve out the back of that? And I give the board immense credit, because we rightly threw criticism their way in terms of where the summer signings were, but they've absolutely backed the manager, and he has earned that trust in terms of what he's been able to achieve thus far and the trajectory that we're going on. What I think yesterday helped us with, David, is I made mention of this to you at the game, was the big thing that's important when you bring these guys in January and you're coming in to elevate the squad, is that you're then saying, how can I come in and give everybody a lift within this? But when you're on the pitch, how do you then also develop the relationships for the guys playing on the flanks, the guys playing alongside each other, whether it's within the defence of the midfield, and obviously, and we're not going to see it, I think, too much more often across the course of the season. But against Kilmarnock and against Queen's Park, obviously we did play with 2 up front. I don't know if that will last or not, but I think it's been interesting to see as to how we could potentially use it, and then that's another weapon in our arsenal. But for me, the big thing is being able to see these guys come in, get into those pairings and get into those relationships, and being able to try and work on them is where that best possibly can. And we've had to chop and change a lot throughout the course of the season, whether it's been on the flanks. You've seen James Tavernier play less this season. I think you have pretty much throughout his entire Rangers career. And you look at the central defence, and obviously injuries have played their part in that, a midfield that couldn't motor. And so we've had to chop and change and take some of that around as well. And a lone striker who at times, frustrated the life out of us. Another striker who, was still really, really profligate in front of goals. And a third striker who, by and large, we couldn't get a lot out of anyway. So these players coming in will help now start to develop those relationships, and I think in a really productive manner. And what's interesting, I think, is you saw against Queen's Park, and yes, I take into account the level of opposition, but you saw a lot of these players looking to be able to try and drive the ball forward as quickly as they possibly could, but yet not have the handbrake on, which I think we saw under Russell Martin. There was an emphasis to go forward, and even if it was a case of, right, I'll sit and you go, and next time I'll go and you sit, and then looking to be able to impress ourselves within that. Romans, I think, is a great example of where he wants to be able to try and not only get to the byline, for example, but he also wants to be able to try and cut inside. It's really, really exciting seeing, again, like I say, that uplift that you've seen from the team so far.
Yeah, definitely. It was a fairly fun game, Colin. Early goal, which obviously helps Rangers. Clearly, we know I've impressed in terms of the work done by Scott 5 from set pieces, and we clearly targeted them as a weakness yesterday. Got the goal early on in the day, and you're absolutely right. To me, he looks like a guy that likes to play in the penalty box and get on the end of things, and you saw that with his 2 goals yesterday, 2 headers. But we have to talk about James Tavernier. No matter the level of opposition, for a defender to hit a first half hat trick and also get 2 assists is pretty damn remarkable stuff. And it takes to have 150 career goals. His first hat trick, and it says a lot about him as a defender, Colin, that I was a bit surprised to hear that it was only his first hat trick.
Yeah, I spent a bit of time Googling it actually. I said,
Yeah.
that must be fun. And I just kept finding his brother scoring hat-tricks and not him. So, yeah, but yeah, 3 goals. You'd think he'd have done that a couple of times, but no, just the once. And I'm glad he's finally got that. He's achieved most things here. That's another thing he's done now. And yeah, obviously there's a caveat of the opposition yesterday, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And that looked like a James Tavernier that we've not seen for a long time. He was getting up and down a lot quicker. I think having better players around him supporting him helps with that. It gives his confidence to actually go forward a little bit more. He's still deadly with the ball. He's still got great shot on him, great ability. He can still pinpoint across. As we saw, the set pieces are working brilliantly, and he's a big part of them as well. And he's still a constant threat, and he's a guy that I think could potentially have a big part to play between now and the end of the season if we manage his minutes properly and we use him at the right times in the right games. That doesn't mean him coming in and out. It might mean him coming off the bench, and maybe him coming off the bench after 60 minutes in some games could be a big asset when he's not got all the kind of energy in his legs and he's able to come on fresh when oppositions are getting tired and things like that. But he showed us yesterday there's still something there, essentially, especially for the rest of this season, and he can contribute and be an important part of the team. And if we are going to have a successful season, he very much deserves to be a part of that, given what he's done for us.
Cammy, the other standout UB for me yesterday was Tochi Chukwani, and again, he will face far bigger challenges than against Queen's Park, understandably. But one thing I like about him is that he hoovers up second balls. He's got that instinctual understanding of where they're going to drop and where to be. And he's got that ability to just tidy up, recycle. But he also has a bit of power about him, and he drives onwards, and of course ended up getting that excellent goal right at the end. Promising start.
Yeah, he takes charge, doesn't he? And by that, what I mean is he doesn't do the things that we saw from some of our midfielders a good few months ago, where there was a hesitancy, a delay to be able to go either for a second ball or almost think that someone else has been able to go and get it. He just, as I say, makes it his. Probably didn't appreciate it until I saw him a little bit closer up, David, as to how big a unit he was. I wasn't expecting that, but he can move and he can shift. And I think his reading of the game, for me, looks promising in terms of where he could be one of those players that can help dictate the tempo of the game. We haven't seen a lot of them, and obviously it's masked by the level of opponent, and we all know that. So we need to just be patient with him in terms of what else we can see at the back. But it's very, very promising signs. What I really enjoyed seeing him yesterday was he did a lot of the kind of left to right to left stuff. It wasn't just about being able to stay centre, go backward and forward. He's very, very mobile. And I think he's reading the game, as I say, is strong whenever he's looking at being able to either think about how players might come on the counter-attack and where he needs to be able to position himself to give himself the easiest chance of making that tackle or recovering the ball or when to intercept. But when going forward, and we are looking to spring an attack, he understands exactly as to where his options are in front of him, whether they are going to be either out to the flank or directly ahead. I think he's been a really promising acquisition, and it's been needed. I think that, as I say, we've talked a lot about where the team have been this season to where they are now. That is that uplift that I think that we've needed to see within midfield, and almost to a certain extent, it's what we would want from Asgard a little bit further. But that's what Chukwani's able to do in terms of where he's sitting, probably within that 6 to maybe kind of low 8 role. He wants to be able to get the ball, but he wants to be able to also make sure that he can spread it out wherever he feels is going to be most effective going forward. So, yeah, as I say, very, very promising. I'm really looking forward to seeing more from him.
Quietly, Colin, this Rangers team this season, the physical profile, I think, has changed. Certainly from last year, but maybe even from the start of the season. It's a big side now. It's a physically stronger side. It looks as though it does have that ability now to physically dominate an opposition side, which we just haven't had.
We haven't had it for far too long.
Yeah.
And it makes such a difference, particularly domestically in this league, where we know what we're going to be coming up against most weeks. And we're coming up against players that aren't scared of putting a tackle in and throwing themselves at people. And for too long, we've had guys that have kind of shirked that and didn't want to get involved in any of that stuff. It's not the case now. Even guys like Nadiri we saw yesterday, if you saw the interview he did after the game where he was standing beside Tav, he's huge.
He's massive, yeah.
Massive. And I didn't really appreciate that either. And it's interesting what Cammy says. Sometimes it's when you see them actually up close, you realise just how big and how tall these guys are. And we've came a long way from Ridvan at left back, haven't we, in terms of players. But yeah, that's a big thing for me, having that sort of strong ability in the team to be brave, to be bold, and to just not be shrugged off balls. And I think that's a thing as well with the opposition looks at, and they look at it and think this isn't going to be easy today. Not only are they technically, skillfully better players than us, they're big units and they're bigger than us and they're going to hurt us as well. And it can only be advantageous to us. It's something we've needed to do for a long time. We've been too weak, particularly in midfield, and that's not the case now, thankfully.
Yeah, I think we've been wee-guyed on occasion the past couple of seasons where you've watched it and you just thought, my goodness, they're getting overrun a bit here. It was just raw physicality that we couldn't match. And of course, the idea is that if you meet and beat them on the physical front, then you should have higher levels of skill, obviously, because you've invested more money in the players. That's not rocket science. It's how it should work, but it hasn't at Rangers for a while. So very solid win. Great, goals for Nadiri early on. That just settles that down. Miovski getting in the score sheet again. Don't think I've ever seen a player that's quite as much a confidence player as Bojan Miovski. Absolutely appalling midweek against Kilmarnock up until he got his goal. Then he was good till he went off. Then he was good yesterday. Just looks different based on that. Cammy, the thing about like a victory like yesterday is that you're expected to do it and you should do it, but they did it in a manner that I think did make people happy and quite excited. But even within the space of a week, I wonder and I hope that maybe a lesson has been learned. When Rangers took the lead against Kilmarnock 3 minutes into the game, we're 1-0 up and they're down to 10 men, there was complacency in the rest of that half. I don't care what anyone says. Rangers played complacently. They played slowly. They played like they were waiting on someone else going and doing something, almost like we're a goal up against 10 men, we're going to win this. Now, we can feel that in the stands. Neutrals can feel it watching on TV. Players on the park can't feel it. They've got to go and do it. Second half, they did. They came out and they did all the things that they hadn't done in the first half. Yesterday, there was no sense of that complacency. I wonder if maybe a lesson was learned in that, and hopefully it's one that can kick us on through the rest of the season.
Yeah, this weird thing about, why not make it easier on yourselves? It would be wonderful to see that more consistently. Listen, it's the big part of it, David, as we all know, was the Kelly game was a hangover from Hibs, right? I think we all know that because we were frustrated about what happened at Easter Road. We wanted to be able to get Kelly. You're handed a dream start, obviously, with the red card and the goal advantage. So now you're thinking, right, okay, now we can click and we can motor and we can do all those things. And as I said, in our car pod on our Patreon site, you could look at that game and the result, and look at the summary of the game and say it's a red card, so obviously Rangers ran away with it. But it doesn't tell the true story of, as I say, that complacency that we saw within the first half. And then you'd think Kelly could tire. I don't actually think Kelly did tire. I think we rightly approached the game with an entirely different attitude in the second half. And, it was 5 for me going on 6, 7, potentially 8 if we'd been able to finish even more chances that in some cases I think, we were very unlucky with. And let's be honest, we should be sitting here right now saying over the last 2 games of football, we've scored 13 goals and should have kept 2 clean sheets, were it not for a Butland brain fart, but we move on. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It should instill within the team that when you are able to move the ball at pace, you don't dilly-dally, you don't hesitate, as I kind of mentioned earlier on, but I don't even just mean in terms of being able to get second balls. I mean, moving at a team with power and pace, your forward moves will come off. We will absolutely convert from them. And so we've got the capability there. What I've been really pleased in terms of the last couple of games is the variety of goals that we've scored, and also the multitude of goal scorers as well. That, I think, for me has been the most pleasing part. I'd love to have said, after a hat-trick against Annan, Bojan Majowski will now be able to really take it up a level. We didn't see that. But he's been involved. And if he can step in to being able to contribute more with goals, especially over the next few games, brilliant. But everyone has now been able to step into, and I think that, again, we talked about the uplift earlier on, that's where it should allow this squad of players, because the manager believes it. We've seen the manager cut a frustrated figure when he's not seen it at halftime, he's not seen it at Easter Road, and we've felt that games should have been more than 1 or 2-0 victories. You can see he gets frustrated by it. So the players now should be able to see what they can do over the last 2 games, that they are very capable going forward now. And fundamentally it boils back down to this, which I know that we've all kind of spoken about. This is not the same Rangers team for September, October. It's not, right? Absolutely not. And I don't even just mean in personnel. I just mean in terms of attitude. And that quality that was so bereft at the start of the season now is very, very much evident within certain players. So all signs point to that, to say, believe in yourselves, go out with a degree of aggression. And I don't mean steaming into people. I mean, go and take control of the game, get the result done and dusted, and then continue to build on that as well with further goals. You will be able to put out statements on every game.
Colin, the manager spoke about it. He said, huge week, 2 games, it's only 3 points in each, but it would be a statement. We've got the opportunity to go top of the league come Sunday night. And clearly, if we can do that, then it would be a giant step. Doesn't mean that we've won it, but it would certainly position us in a good place to go on and clinch it. First up, we've got Motherwell. Now, I've been most impressed of all the teams I've seen Rangers play this season. Motherwell at Ibrox, I think domestically, have impressed me the most. I thought they were excellent. And going there will be a difficult match. There's zero doubt about that. But I do think that we are slightly in danger of maybe overdoing that. I think that we still need to remember we should be going there and winning.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I've heard so many people say Motherwell's the one they're worried about. They think Hearts will take care of itself, Celtic will take care of itself, etc. Motherwell's the one they're worried about dropping points, worried about things going wrong. I think that's a mindset we need to try and get out of. All things being well, Rangers being a successful side over the last 10 years and doing all the things that we should have been doing, you're not worried about going to Motherwell regardless of Motherwell's form, because we're Rangers and they're Motherwell. There's a bit of scar tissue there. There's a bit of us maybe still not having enough belief in ourselves, maybe waiting for something to go wrong because we're refusing to believe that in 2 games we could be top of this division. So yeah, there is maybe some of that involved. Motherwell have played brilliantly. They were great at Ibrox, like you said. They've been unbeaten since we beat them in December. In that game, 5 wins and a draw since then. They've also not played a game, though, since the 31st of January when they beat Livingston due to a couple of call-offs because of the weather. That could be advantageous to them in terms of freshness, but it could also have impacted them in terms of just getting out of routine. And the best thing for a good football team is to keep playing. We've said that all through the last few years, that when we've been at our best, it's actually been when we've been playing weekend, midweek. That's when we've got into our rhythms in the past. So you've got to hope that has an impact on them as well. But the things we spoke about already today for me are huge into this one. We've got better players now. We're playing better. We've got more belief. I think a big thing for us now, having the better players in the team and playing better, is that in the early part of this season when we struggled so badly, it's because we only really had the one tactic, and at the times it was just give the ball to Gassama and see what he can do. And that worked for a couple of games, and then people got wise to it and he began to struggle. And there was no other option. There was nobody else looking for anything. There's nobody else brave enough to try anything. Now we've got options all over the park. Offensively, we've got people all trying to get on the end of things, trying to make things happen. And the confidence levels helps with that. That's another reason why it's so important, I think, that when we do get an early goal, when we do go 1-up, get the second, because when we do that, our whole demeanour as a team changes. We look so much more confident after going up, goal up, going 2-up, and we try more things and we do better things, and then you do things like yesterday where you end up with 8 goals off the back of it. So yeah, I hope I don't end up with a custard pie in my face by saying this, but I don't have the same fear about Motherwell as I've heard other people saying. Mainly because I don't want to be somebody that's scared of going to Motherwell. We shouldn't feel that way. And I think we've given ourselves a little bit of credit in the last couple of months to go into it with a bit more confidence than some are showing.
Yeah, I don't want to in any way denigrate, and I don't want people to think I'm saying, oh, this is going to be easy. It's really not, right? Motherwell are a very good football side. They're playing really well, and I have nothing but admiration for the work that their manager has done there this season. It's a tough game, but if we think we can win the league, and if we want to win the league, we've got to go to places like Motherwell and pick up a win, Cammy. So I do expect Rangers to win this game. I'm not saying that they will. My expectation means nothing in what causes it. We will need to play well. If we play badly, Motherwell will beat us. I'm aware of that. But I do think that this Rangers team is capable of going there and putting in a performance that lands us the 3 points.
Yeah, totally agree. Am I confident about beating Motherwell? Yeah, probably. Am I confident that we will win all of the games from now until the end of the season? No, not so much.
Realistically, we probably won't. There will be dips.
But,
yeah, we know that. There'll be a bad performance chucked in here or there. It happens.
But then the counterpoint to that, David, is, looking at ourselves. We drop points at Easter Roads and then we win 5-1 in the league. So that is the perfect response. That is exactly what you want to be able to do. Now, what's going to happen across the course of the next few weeks is that between ourselves, Hearts and Celtic, it will create a furore around, well, if you do drop points, are you now in a crisis? Because I can guarantee you that if Hearts lose the Edinburgh Derby tomorrow night, then they've got to come to Ibrox. It will feel like a much, much tougher task because they've got to be able to try and recover it. So every team that's involved within this title race is going to go through all of that. And, I'm sorry for using the cliche as well, but Rangers do have to treat it one game at a time at the moment, and we have to take into context. Colin mentioned there about, Motherwell haven't played for a while. Okay, Grant, I couldn't care less about how often Motherwell have played. This is all about our approach to the game. And what we said about let's have that focus and make it as laser focused as we can to be able to try and make sure that we put out and get the result. And if we win 1-0 or 5-0, nobody will really care. The 3 points is the most important thing. But this Rangers team's capable of going out there and putting on a really, really strong performance. And there's no reason for us to then think, well, if we are going away to Fir Park or Pittodrie or whatever, you've hit the nail on the head. You have to go to these places and win. If you want to be truly serious about a title run in when we get into the last third of the season, you have to be able to go out there and really, really make sure that you can impress the game yourselves. That's key to it all. Rangers have got zero reason not to do that as far as I'm concerned now.
Nope, absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to it. I suppose that's the biggest sea change for me. Being totally honest, as we always are with the listeners, earlier in the season, under Russell Martin, pretty much from the start, but towards the end, going to watch Rangers was a chore because you were just waiting on getting a kick in the nuts. You would almost be dreading it. Because what sort of nonsense were we going to be served up, and then afterwards, the bloodletting and anger, the whole thing was just, it hurt. Whereas now, Sunday bouncing out of bed, ready to go for it, can't count down the hours to the Motherwell game, then I'll be counting down the hours to the Hearts game. That's probably, I would say, Danny Rowe's biggest achievement for me is that he's made me anticipate Rangers games again rather than just fear what the outcome might be.
The big thing, I think, for me, David, and I saw it yesterday when we were watching the game, but more so when I was waiting for the Stenhousemuir Falkirk game to finish, was that I was desperate to get Celtic in the draw. Desperate to get them. And how many times over the last few seasons have we said we could really do without an Old Firm game this early on within the cup competition? And I was choking to be able to see if we could get them. Unfortunately, that happened for us. That for me is probably my real, the acid test of what Danny Rule has done for us all, in the fact that we can wait and anticipate and really, really want an Old Firm game to come around this early on, and I was absolutely delighted when we pulled them out of the hat.
Yep, well, he's given us this belief. It's now time for the players to go and prove that belief is well founded. Before we go today, I just want to announce, starting next week, we will have a new sponsor on the show, and we will be brought to you in association with the Rangers Youth Development Company. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome them as our main sponsor, and hopefully we'll persuade a few of you to play the Rangers Lotto, to donate to RYDC, to buy a brick, and to support. They have donated over £12.5 million to Rangers academies since 2002. An absolutely incredible achievement led by Colin Stewart, who does sterling work for them there. So yes, I warn you now, I'll be promoting the hell out of this. It's something that I very much believe in, and it's something that Rangers will need to do more and more in the future as European football's landscape shifts the power continually more and more to the top 5 leagues. We need to bring through some talent and make sure we've got, plus you like to see some of our own, some local lads in the first team as well. So yep, keep your eyes peeled for that and support the Rangers Youth Development Company. Right then, my thanks to our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Miles, neither of whom are in London, but I still like to say that because it annoys them. And I'd also like to thank my guests today. First of all, Colin McMillan.
Yeah, thank you. Absolute pleasure to talk about Rangers at the moment, and long may that continue.
And Cammy Bell, who will be back later in the week with Heart and Hand Extra, going through the Motherwell game and looking ahead to the Hearts match.
Yeah, it'll either be brilliant or, I don't even want to think about the alternate option. But yeah, thank you both for a great conversation. Thank you to all the listeners. Really looking forward to Thursday.
Thanks for listening, folks. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.